Hello and welcome. I'm pleased to be joined by Barbara Larson today. She's the Senior Vice President of Accounting, Tax and Treasury at Workday. Barbara brings more than 25 years of finance and business experience to her current role. She joined Workday in 2014. She served in various leadership roles. Most recently, she was the general manager where she led the product strategy, management, and the engineering teams responsible for Workday financial management. Before that, she was the vice president of business finance. And before joining Workday, Barbara held various roles at VMware and Tipco Software and other companies like Symantec. So today's session is really going to be about how finance can accelerate its digital finance journey using the cloud. But often that journey requires some new tool sets, new mindsets within finance, and really for finance to adapt to the pace of this change. So we're going to go deeper today and we learn about Workday's approach to their digital finance acceleration and based on its offering for the Office of the CFO. And that combined with a unique four-step framework, which is based on elements such as design thinking, empathy to remove friction from processes, and really creating a decision-ready organization that puts insights into the core of everything that finance does. And this should really foster greater collaboration with IT and with the business to maximize and leverage these technology investments and embrace continuous learning and innovation to really manage the pace of change. So in my opening, I talked about the changing role of the CFO and the CFO as a driver of value creation and really looking at that transition from being a business partner to becoming a value partner. Now, when we look at the whole idea of business partnering and value partnering, what you see is there is a gap. We need to address that gap in two ways. There's the technical side of the gap in terms of using tech and automation and really explore how technology can bridge that gap and enable the shift. And how Barbara, with her examples with Workday, how she has been that partner, how she's bridged the gap from moving from the business partner to the value partner. And that's really what Barbara is going to focus on. The other gap that we want to address is the skills gap. But for this session, we're going to focus on technology. And Barbara is going to bring us insights into how she made that shift in Workday and how Workday as a platform can be your partner and really help you bridge that gap. So let's go over to the next slide around the value creation mindset and how we create value. The value creation is really around the mindset of being able to automate your transactions. And so we need a agile and an automation mindset. As you move up in the organization, in the middle band, we need data analytics mindset and we need a problem-solving mindset. And finally, to really drive value at the very top, we should be looking at having a value creation mindset, which is assisted by an anticipatory mindset. So these are new mindsets that are required to drive finance transformation, to bridge that gap. So these are the kind of mindsets we go in as finance professionals to create. And so I'm really thankful that Barbara has taken time out of her busy schedule and recorded this for us. Barbara, thank you so much for joining us and to talk about how you approach in your four-step framework in terms of value creation. You know that Workday is a leader in HCM, in human capital management solutions. But when we look at the Gartner's Magic Quadrant, Workday is a leader in financial management, at least for the past 4 years, and a leader in FP&A solutions. They've got over 5,000 customers worldwide. And so it really is an insight into what they can offer as a world-class unified solution that encompasses the needs around data analytics, planning, and core accounting to really bring everything together and serve the office of the CFO. But before we dig in, could you share a little bit about what Workday is, who Workday is, and what Workday is all about, Barbara?
Thanks, Ash. I'd love to. First of all, thanks so much for having me here today. It's a pleasure to be able to join you. So about Workday. Workday went public in 2012. And since 2013, we've experienced a compound annual growth rate of 41%, all while keeping G&A costs as a percent of revenue at 6%. We now serve more than 9,000 enterprise customers across 170 countries in which those customers operate. So a lot of progress over the last 9+ years.
Fantastic. So you obviously got a platform that has supported this incredible growth. Have you really been able to scale all of this to your current levels quite cost effectively?
Absolutely. To support this hyper growth, we had to act with speed like a startup, but aggressively scale like a large enterprise. So because Workday was born in the cloud, we run our finance operations in the cloud, scaling the number of users and supporting the growth in transaction volume wasn't a problem. The challenge was in how to create a finance organization that was really built for change without sacrificing rapid decision-making or agility. And to do that, we created a 4-step framework for digital finance acceleration that's really based on the principles of design thinking, insight, collaboration, and innovation. We're using this framework to put finance at the heart of business strategy at Workday.
So, Barbara, we talked about how finance really needs to change their mindsets and shift from being those business partners to becoming the value partners. And as we went up the chain of type of mindsets, we talked about this adopting a problem-solving mindset. And I can see in your framework, it really does support that. Would be great to hear from you how it does.
Yeah, here's how it works. We begin with really a simple first step, which is reimagine everything using this design thinking approach, putting the needs of your internal and your external customers first. At Workday, we use empathy as well as technology to address the challenges our teams face. And we define our experiences end to end versus in a silo. We're really trying to eliminate that friction from processes whenever, wherever possible. We also test and validate our assumptions with our teams and definitely look like a true finance professional to quantify the benefits or the return. For instance, we conduct periodic internal value realization studies to really benchmark our results and the results of using Workday solutions. And finally, we continuously are reflecting on how to optimize the experience for all of our customers, our internal, our external. And I can give you a couple of examples of where we've got this in action. So Workday has multiple applications that really support the process automation, specifically in areas like the close process. We use Workday Extend to enrich or tailor processes that maybe are not available within our core Workday functionality. And with Workday Extend, it allows transactional activity to be performed directly within the system and still have that Workday experience surrounding it. and really provides better consistency, auditability, and efficiency, all things that mean a lot to us in the finance organization.
Exactly right. So, Barbara, could you give us some specific examples of this?
Yeah, I actually have a very relevant and recent example I think will resonate with everyone around the close process. Our vision at Workday is to get to a 0-day close, and we're using solutions like Workday Financials, Accounting Center, Prism Analytics, and Extend to really look at removing inefficiencies in the close process. Accounting Center, takes advantage of our intelligent data core to create this high-powered accounting engine that brings all your financial, operational, and even external data, ingests it, enriches that data, then it runs the data through an accounting rules engine and ultimately posts the journal entries to the general ledger. So I like to think of Accounting Center as a virtual subledger. We've got the ability to drill down all the way to the transactional layer. So that's such a relief when you can see exactly where a number came from and really validate it. And we've got our applications also using machine learning and other technologies to deliver insights and exceptions, continuously throughout the period. So we can address issues up front instead of waiting to that time-intensive month-end close crunch.
Right. And so our audience here is European, Barbara. Could you perhaps share how Workday handles the elements of cross-border and international reporting challenges?
Well, as we expand globally, we've definitely at Workday had to flex and adapt to local compliance, as many of you do. And as Workday's products develop, we continuously are looking for solutions within the Workday finance system, to address some of those requirements. And one of the countries with such local requirements is Poland, exactly where this conference is taking place. So Poland has very specific reporting requirements, local language, usage of local bank foreign exchange rates, and Workday's eliminated the need for a local vendor bookkeeping and accounting services by using custom reports, Prism Analytics, and Accounting Center to really address and comply with all of the very specific Polish requirements. We can now run a local statutory trial balance, including all local statutory foreign exchange and other adjustment journals from Workday's statutory book, using our multi-book functionality for Poland, as opposed to US GAAP. We estimate that, all in all, this will reduce our in-house resource time by 1 month and is going to save us thousands of dollars in third-party vendor fees. So we're now taking a look at this solution and how we might be able to use that in other countries that have very similar requirements, France, Germany, the Czech Republic, and transform that local compliance cycle into a proactive rather than a reactive process.
That really sounds quite powerful in terms of functionality. Another mindset we talked about was to move from being the report generators, just the providers of information, providing you budgets and actuals and variance analysis, and moving from being a business partner to a real value generator, a value partner. How would you say your framework addresses that, Barbara?
So at Workday, we put insight at the core of everything we do. Having the insights you need to make the best decisions really is the foundation for any company that wants to compete in today's ever-changing economy. And to really get the benefits of rapid access to data and analytics, you don't need to do a big rip and replace. Our technology makes it easy to gain insight, I mentioned our intelligent data core, which allows us to ingest all this financial, operational, third-party data and quickly put that information right in the hands of decision makers all across the business. Additionally, we've given our finance team ownership of the finance data model, including the accounting rules, the mappings, the calculations, and metrics. And doing this enables finance to manage and enrich that data to run their own reports, analytics, and planning models. And it's absolutely been a game changer for us.
Yeah, I can imagine that because when you look at that functionality of having the intelligent data core and ownership over this data model, that is so fundamentally important that finance really owns that data model. And so to understand the why and to understand what's behind the numbers is so critical. Could you give us some examples of how you use this Workday's intelligent data core and the automation capabilities to automate something that is really complex and enable your team to spend time on things that really matter, things that actually add value?
Yeah, I have a couple I'd love to share. One example is how we've automated the stock compensation process, which we're using E-Trade as our stock administration system. So with Prism and Accounting Center, we're able to ingest a significant amount of information automatically from E-Trade right into Prism. We're performing our manual checks and processes automatically, and then automatically producing our journal entries using Workday Accounting Center. Accounting Center then enriches the data with all the appropriate data attributes, the legal entity, cost centers, and accounts. A process that used to take my team 2.5 days will now be completed in a matter of hours, which is just an incredible time saver and gets us closer to our vision of getting to a 0-day close. And, we believe we're just starting to scratch the surface here on what we can do to automate process and give our users access to, immediate real-time information.
And in terms of the kinds of benefits that you're seeing, we talked about being a decision-ready organization, and I can see how your platform actually enables one to be decision-ready. Could you talk about some of these benefits?
Yeah, we've achieved what we think are some pretty amazing benefits by being decision-ready at Workday. The stock administration example is just one of the 75 use cases we've developed for Prism Analytics across our entire finance function, using 15 different data sources. Almost half of these use cases are in my team, the accounting, tax, and treasury function. And you can see here how we're using dashboards to give our decision makers real-time access to data. Almost all of our dashboards are managed directly by the end users, so they're empowered to generate their own reports because of the functionality that they have available to them in Workday.
That's awesome. Thanks, Barbara. The other change we want to talk about is this having a culture of being agile, and I really am talking about this agile mindset. It's not a linear, logical, step-by-step process, but it's much more iterative. How does your framework support this agile mindset, Barbara?
Agile isn't just for IT anymore. It's also for finance. And that really means fostering this closer collaboration between finance, IT, and the business. And as we've become kind of masters of our own destiny in finance, our reliance on IT has lessened somewhat. Step 3, though, is all about creating that closer relationship focused on how finance and IT can mutually collaborate to invest in technology that the business needs to grow profitably and innovate versus just keeping the lights on or responding to requests for information. My team shares a really close collaboration with IT at Workday. We are in constant communication with both IT as well as product development to share input on the needs of our customers and really influence the product roadmap, as well as have IT understand the metrics upon which we're all measured. And in addition to being an early adopter, we're very fortunate of adopting use cases early, such as Prism Analytics, the ones I mentioned earlier. We also bring recommendations to IT on how to partner with us to solve some of the business challenges that we're both facing. You know, a great example of this happened during the pandemic when we worked closely with IT to create a dashboard that allows us to look at accounts receivable balances through an industry lens. And it's given us a lot more precision in terms of assessing risk to accounts receivable as well as cash flow. And we could then contact these customers in the hardest hit industries and discuss whether they needed payment deferrals or other changes as needed. You know, customers have just been hugely appreciative of just how proactive we were in terms of reaching out during, a time that was very challenging for a lot of organizations. We also work with IT to really try to think end to end instead of in our own silos. We know that tax management is a top concern of European CFOs. We think we are one of the few companies to be able to automate the tax provision legal entity forecast end to end. We're using our adaptive planning tool to replace Excel and automate our legal entity transfer pricing, set up the foundation for future tax models such as our non-GAAP effective tax rate and also scenario planning. And I think we're all going to be in the same boat of scenario planning around tax with all the changes that are coming up.
Barbara, thank you. You went into a very great depths and detail there, very, very valid and very real examples that most of us can relate with, and how technology is really providing that capability and the power to automate and to really reduce that burden on finance, on those manual tasks that take up a lot of the time, take up a lot of bandwidth, and just really impressed by how you're putting the customer at the very beginning, at the very top, and everything is built around the customer experience, which really, as you said before, speaks to the approach around design thinking. But when you think about the agile mindset, it's not just about that relationship with IT, but it's about continuously testing and learning and optimizing processes and truly create value through this technology. How does your framework do that, Barbara?
So our last step probably addresses that, and it's perhaps the most important of all, which is really to embrace continuous learning and innovation to stay ahead of the competition in today's changing world. That means providing teams, finance teams, with new experiences and learning opportunities, prioritizing digital literacy and skills, and ensuring you equip your teams with the latest technologies. If you don't do all of those things, your talent is likely to go elsewhere. I think we're all concerned about that based on today's environment, to other companies that maybe can offer them a career path and experiences that matter using world-class technologies. So really, really important to provide those to your organization.
That's really, really well said, Barbara. So in terms of how you think about the next generation of talent in your organization, how do you approach that?
Well, as you can tell by some of the use cases I described, our accountants at Workday are very innovative. I'm very proud of that. We're motivated to really think out of the box, to find opportunities, to remove friction from processes, and find ways that we can add value to the business. This focus on having a change mindset, looking for new ways to improve, combined with our uptake of new technologies, has helped us drive, greater efficiencies in how we operate. The team really prides itself on running lean because it reflects how we're able to use our own technology to scale with the growth of the business.
That's awesome. So we talked about the shift from business partnering to value partnering. And when you talk of value partnering, it really is about, making the business case to automate, making the business case to implement and adopt a framework such as Workday. You really need to be able to prove value. And so the question that comes to mind is, what value have you been able to demonstrate a value in terms of using this framework?
So we live this framework every day. We certainly have the ROI to show for it. We've increased our operational efficiency by nearly 60% over the past 8 years, saving us more than $6 million in annualized G&A cost avoidance during a period of that 41% compound annual growth rate for revenue. And as our G&A as a percentage of revenues is among the lowest in our SaaS peer group at 6%. In fact, we've kept G&A low despite taking on new acquisitions such as recently Scout, RFP, and Peakon, each of which we integrated in just 3 weeks into our systems and processes, without missing a beat. We're also really excited about consuming all of the latest innovations from our product teams over the last 2 years. Our finance teams have either adopted or are in the process of adopting nearly 98% of all new features we've released in our Office of the CFO solution. So that's pretty incredible, and we're really proud to be a kind of first and best customer of Workday.
That's brilliant. You're actually demonstrating that the functionality works and can be put to good use. So all of this automation, everything that you've just explained, in my opening, I talked about being engaged in that business model and focusing on creating value in a world that is really powered by that digital ecosystem, enabling a digital business model. Could you share with us some of the ways that you and your team think about that value creation and value generation at Workday, Barbara?
Yeah, for our teams, it really means that, finance can spend, less time on the transactional activities, more time on that high value, forward-looking business building. Partnering with our leaders on initiatives to accelerate our revenue growth, enabling new business models, and optimizing cash flow, tax, and investment strategy. And while the implementation of automation in accounting in most businesses is still in the early stages, the future is coming much faster than we probably all think. The more you can integrate accounting automation now, I think the better positioned you and your finance teams will be to really become that strategic partner for your CEO and the business in the days ahead.
That's really, really well explained, well put. Thank you, Barbara. It's been a delight to have this conversation. And your 4-step framework, I am absolutely sure is going to be a hit. I can see many of us really looking at that framework and adopting it. So once again, thank you for taking the time. And hopefully the next time we'll have you live in Poland.
I hope so. Would love to be there. Thank you, Ash. Was delighted to be here today.
Thank you, Barbara.